Truhe comes to us from KSB Law, and he's going to talk some digital citizenship today. I just sat through the first session, and it is very engaging and very, very relevant. So, as is our custom, we're going to go ahead and keep our phones put away for this presentation, unless he should ask you to go ahead and get it out for something specific to put away. And please give him a round of applause and your attention. Bobby Truhe.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Bobby. I'm a lawyer. I appreciate you being here on Valentine's Day, no less. Not that you had much of a choice. I'm going to chat with you for about the next hour about what I generally and a lot of others refer to as digital citizenship, which you may think is a little bit weird having to listen to a lawyer talk about that stuff. All I do, though, and all everybody in my law firm does, is answer calls from schools. So in other words, if there has been an issue with students, let's just say hypothetically, exchanging nudes, I might get a call. Now, I'm sure none of that has ever happened here, right? Good. But let's just say hypothetically you had two kids exchanging nudes. School finds out about it. They might call somebody like me and say, Bobby, they're good kids. I don't think we don't want them to get in a ton of trouble, but they need to understand that's not cool. My answer is, yeah, I understand that too, but the laws in Nebraska are pretty clear, right? So I get calls about a lot of crazy stuff. And so my hope today is that I'm going to give you some of what those calls actually go like when your administrator calls me and says, we found this thing out. How law enforcement, people that charge crimes, right? How they view these things, because you're young adults, right? Many of you in here are probably, on your way to a job or to college or something like that. The laws, as they say, just hit different when you're a minor, but a lot of this stuff is going to be relevant even as you move on past high school. So I'm not just going to sit here and tell you you shouldn't exchange nudes and you should be nice to each other. I assume that's all stuff you've heard and probably have down. What we're going to talk about is those situations that didn't happen, including I'm going to tell you my two favorite phone calls that I've ever gotten in this line of work, and I'll just be honest with you, there have been some doozies. But I'm going to tell you my two favorite stories during this presentation today. Story number one is what we're going to lead off with. There's a junior boy, this is in the spring, a couple years ago, he's on the track team. He has a 6th period weight training class, so he puts on his gym shorts and t-shirt, does weight training, then he's got a 7th period math class before his day is over, and he goes out to track practice. He decides, I'm not going to put my jeans back on just to go to math class, so he just wears his t-shirt and shorts to math class. He apparently does not like math, because about 10 minutes in, the teacher turns around to write something on the whiteboard. He pulls out his phone, pulls open his pants, and takes a picture of himself at his desk in the middle of math class. Undeterred, he decides, it's a good pick. I should send that to a friend of mine, a girl, not a girlfriend, but just a friend of his that's in an English class about 2 doors down in this high school. So she's sitting in her junior English class, and she looks down. He sends her the picture on Snapchat. She looks down, it's Snapchat, right? So she's got notifications on, obvi. So she sees this notification pop up on her phone, which is sitting in her bag right next to her desk. Now, she's really interested in what could have been sent to her by this boy from math class. He's got a bit of a reputation for doing crazy stuff, which he's fulfilling this day. About 5 minutes left in the English class. They have a free reading and free journaling time. So teacher goes and sits up at the teacher's desk, is starting to do something on her computer. This girl decides, we better check that snap. So she reaches down into her backpack, grabs out the phone, whispers to her best friend sitting next to her, hey, I got a snap. So the teacher kind of looks and makes sure, they're being sneaky about it. She's got the phone sitting in her lap and she pretends to be reading. Teacher then turns to her computer again. Girl puts the phone out into the middle of the aisle so that her best friend can see it. Opens the snap. Yeah. And what do they see? Precisely what he said. Now, there's two things that I would like to make really, really clear about this story. Number one, dudes, they don't want to see that unsolicited, I can promise you. Number two, what do you think the girl decided to do after it hit her underdeveloped frontal lobe and she realized what she has on her phone? 100%. Does she take one screenshot of a picture that is not a video and therefore is not moving? Nope. Involuntary reaction takes over, and she takes a bunch of screenshots. For reasons that I will truly never understand. So the teacher sees these two girls giggling uncontrollably and is like, hey, what's going on back there? Nothing, right? So the teacher stands up and walks back to where they are. They're like, there's something going on back here. What's going on? They're like, nothing, she just told a funny joke. Teacher doesn't believe them, right? They're laughing too much. So she goes back up to the front of the room, kind of keep an eye on them. They start giggling again. So teacher walks back. What is going on back here? These two girls are like, nothing, we promise. The problem is, when she held her phone out in the aisle, it's pretty clear that the friend that got the picture, her best friend, thought that was funny. But the girl sitting right behind them had clearly never seen one of those like that before. She is beet red. She literally has like tears in her eyes. I'm sure when the teacher spots her and says, what is going on back here? Those two girls in the front are like. So teacher says, what is going on back here? She's like, I don't want to say. The teacher takes her out in the hallway, leaves the door open. What was going on back there? Either you tell me or you're getting in trouble too. This poor girl breaks down sobbing. The way the teacher tells me the story later on the phone call with the principal is she doesn't want to say, pretty obviously, but eventually she goes, okay. On the phone was a picture of a P-E-N-I-S. He spells it out, refuses to say it out loud. The entire room erupts in laughter. This poor girl is embarrassed as all get out, so the teacher walks in, grabs the two girls that were sitting in front of her, takes this girl. The two girls that were sitting in front of her immediately rat out the boy that sent the picture. So they go down and grab him from his classroom, head down to the principal's office. Unbeknownst to me, the principal calls me on my cell phone. I will never forget it. I am driving. Principal calls me on my cell phone and says, Bobby, we got a little situation here. I'm like, okay. All four of the kids and the teacher were in the principal's office when he called, which is not great, but he says, Bobby, we're going to play a little game called Count the Crimes. And I'm like, ooh, I'm not good at much as a lawyer, but I can do. So we start counting. Eventually, because the principal had done what he is legally required to do and called law enforcement before he called me, one of the local police officers walks into the office and joins in my counting of crimes exercise. Now, I will tell you that I think there are more crimes that have been committed than what the police officer and I eventually agreed to. But how many crimes do you think we conclude, myself, a member of local law enforcement, of the county sheriff's office, how many crimes do you think were committed in that, let's just say, 1 hour period, where he takes and sends the picture, she takes the screenshots, and they end up in the principal's office? 10? That's a good guess.
100.
7? Decent guess. 3?
47.
Well, I will tell you that by the time we conclude the exercise, we got to 26. Now, I start out with that story mostly because research says there's a pretty good chance that about 1 out of 3 of you have either taken and sent or received a nude. I hope that's not true, but can we all just agree that it has happened in Gothenburg because it has happened everywhere? I'm not asking for a show of hands. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know. But this happens everywhere. Here's how we got to 26. Now, those kids were absolutely gobsmacked by the idea that it was more than 2 crimes. They're like, we exchanged nudes, right? I sent her a nude, she took it, like, we did one bad thing. No, that's not how it works. By any other definition in Nebraska, when he took that picture and sent it to her, he had created and distributed what is otherwise known as child pornography. So he gets charged with 2 crimes. She gets charged with 24. Most of the students that I talked to were like, well, that doesn't really seem fair. And I get that. Every time she took a screenshot, she created child pornography. She took 12 screenshots. And then she had those photos in her camera roll on her phone. So now she is in possession of 12 images depicting child pornography. That's 24 crimes in Nebraska, minimum. So I get it. I was in high school once. We're going to talk a little bit about this stuff. Some other crazy things that can get you in trouble on your phone. But the one main thing that I want you to understand is the laws out there when it comes to things like sending and receiving inappropriate pictures are a little wilder than you might suspect. So what else are we going to talk about? Could you get in trouble at school? Absolutely. What can you get in trouble for? Then we're going to talk a little bit more about sexting and inappropriate pictures, then some of what I call the in real life considerations. I hope I get to it. We have time at the end. There is a wonderful story about the permanence in your life of social media. Every single app that you visit, every single thing you do online, they're tracking it all, right, including your keystrokes, because they want that data. They want to know how you use their app because they want to send you the right ads or suggest the right things. So we're going to talk about the permanence. Student handbook is, right? Are you aware of that it exists? The reason that every school every year sends you and your parents a copy of your handbook is because the law in Nebraska says you can't get in trouble for something you do at school until the school's told you the rules. So you don't have to read your handbook to know that if you punch somebody in the hallway, you're going to get in trouble. You probably know that. But there's some other stuff in your handbook that might be a little more surprising to you. For example, we have a law in Nebraska that says basically if you're a bully, right, whether that's physical, in-person, verbal, or electronically, the school is required by law to try to stop you from being a bully. If you engage in any activity forbidden by the laws of the state of Nebraska, you can get in trouble at school. So those two kids, right, the one that created and distributed, the kid in math class, yeah, the girl that took the screenshots, they also could have been expelled from school because they broke a law while they were on school grounds. There's a lot of stuff then that could apply to your conduct. For example, and I'm sure it's nobody in this room, if you've ever received a nude over Snapchat or texting or any other sort of messaging and that's on your phone, and I'm telling you right now, it doesn't ever go away, right? Even if it was over Snapchat, they can pull that from your phone with the right technology. You are currently breaking the law in Nebraska and could be expelled for it. Now, I'm not saying every school does that every time, but what I'm telling you is that's something you'd see in your handbook. If you break a law in Nebraska, you can get in trouble at school. Lovely question. What if I break a law outside of school grounds? Could it still affect me at school? 100%. We're going to talk about that next. So what can happen? You could be suspended or expelled from school. You could be removed from activities. And we're going to talk about some cases to put some meat on the bones here. First case I'm going to talk to you about is a case of a cheerleader that tried out for the varsity cheer team as a freshman but got stuck on JV. She was devastated. She worked really hard throughout the rest of her freshman year. Tries out for the varsity cheer team again as a sophomore, and gets put on JV. I don't think some of you are appreciating the seriousness of what's happening to this young lady. So, tryout results come out on a Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, her and her friend that is also put on JV because she doesn't have a great attitude, walk into a gas station and decide to fly the one-finger salute. Take a picture of it, post it on their Snapchat story with a caption that says, F school, F softball, F cheer, F everything. F the coach. And then they start picking on a freshman girl that does make the varsity team. And they're angry. So what happens? A bunch of the other cheer team members see their lack of spirit and enthusiasm and take screenshots and show the cheer coach. Cheer coach finds out about it, kicks them off the cheer team for the rest of the year. Now, do you think their parents sat them down and said, listen, you really shouldn't be flying the one-finger salute and telling your coach to F off? That's not cool. Do you think that's what happens? No, they sued the school. You can't kick my kid off the cheer team for doing something on a Saturday morning outside of school. Your rules can't extend that far, school. You have no authority. So the case goes all the way to the United States Supreme Court to answer this question. Could you get in trouble at school for something you do outside of school, such as online? What do you think the court said? Yes, for sure. In fact, it's been the rule since the 1960s. Now, in the 60s, they weren't thinking about cell phones, right? They were thinking about kids that were doing other stuff at school. But they said, to the extent that you do something outside of school and that causes a disruption at school, you can get in trouble at school. And if you are doing things like engaging in threats, bullying, harassment, misusing any technology the school's issued you, or check out this one, invading the rights of others to feel safe and secure when they come to school, the school has more authority. In other words, they might not even have to prove disruption. We talked about the bullying law in Nebraska, which requires schools to try to step in and not only give consequences if you're being a bully, but to try to stop it from happening. So the court says if you're doing stuff outside of school that causes a disruption, you can get in trouble. And if you're bullying or harassing or making threats, you can get in trouble. So let's play this out. This is a kid that decided to make a mashup video. You know what a mashup video is? You take a video and you put your own song behind it, and then you play the two together. This kid takes a video that is designed to avoid school shootings, and he puts the song Pumped Up Kicks behind it. If you've never heard the song Pumped Up Kicks, it is arguably a song about a school shooting. You better outrun my gun, outrun my bullets. So this kid takes an anti-school shooting video, puts a school shooting song behind it, posts it on his Instagram account with the caption, "See you next year if you're alive." Now this is fascinating to me. Every time I talk to students about this, they giggle, but every one of your teachers is like, "I can't believe these kids." And I get why. One of these kids decided to show his mom the post. Mom posted on Facebook. Now, just by show of hands, how many of you have Facebook? Keep your hand up if it's your favorite social media app. Not because your parents have ruined it, right? Straight up. But my mom, and mostly my aunts and uncles, right? My Uncle Mike has the weirdest political takes. Facebook is on the third page of my iPhone. I only ever hear about Facebook when Brenda, my mom, texts me and is like, "You didn't wish your brother happy birthday." I'm like, "Mom, we just FaceTimed with him for like 10 minutes. Why didn't see it on Facebook?" That is how your parents think about it, and I think you probably agree. But you don't want to be on Facebook because like your teachers are there. Of course you don't. But if you want to get a community whipped up, you know what you do? You get Facebook moms and dads all sorts of fired up. And that thing will spread across your community like wildfire. So by the time AN, who makes this post, realizes, holy crap, I've upset Facebook moms. Does he go in and delete his post? Nah, he posts another, "See you next year, it's not a threat, you bleeps need to chill." And I will tell you that the reaction from Facebook parents in this community was also very negative to that comment. By the time the school works with law enforcement to investigate this situation, there have been over 200 independent phone calls from concerned parents who are convinced there's going to be a shooting at this school in the future. Now, every one of the students, when asked, was like, "No, there wasn't. AN's just a knucklehead. He just does dumb stuff. I wasn't afraid." But the bell had been rung. So the school calls off school for at least the next day. They bring in AN. They're like, "Dude, why would you do that?" What do you think he says? "I was just joking." "Dude, I don't even have a gun. I wasn't going to hurt anybody." The principal's like, "Well, listen, do you think having to call off school when the school getting hundreds of calls and the police getting hundreds of calls from concerned parents is a disruption?" "For sure." So they expel him from school. Now, do you think his parents sit him down? They're like, "Listen, AN, you really shouldn't be making jokes about school shootings, bud. That's not a cool thing to do." Do you think that's what happens? No, they sued the school. "My kid made a mashup video. He wasn't going to come in and shoot anybody. You can't kick him out of school for that. Kids make videos all the time with crazy stuff in that. You can't kick him out of school." So they go to court. They make two arguments. Number one, he's never been in trouble before. Just because your principal's a big scaredy cat doesn't mean you get to kick my kid out of school for something that wasn't even really a threat. How about the First Amendment? You ever heard of your right to freedom of speech? You, school, can't discipline him for something that he did outside of school grounds because he has First Amendment rights. And what do you think the judge said? Well, sure they can. Your speech caused a disruption. We had to call off school. That counts. You can be disciplined for that. This is my favorite part of the case. Who gets to decide what's a threat is what this judge had to answer. So this kid, AN, is sitting in front of the judge, and the judge is like, "Dude, why would you post that?" "Oh, I was just joking. I wasn't going to hurt anybody." Here's what the judge says. Although the student argued the post was meant to be a joke, the student's subjective intent, in other words, his personal intent when he posted it, is irrelevant. What matters is, how did the community and school administrators and teachers respond to it, and did it cause a disruption? The judge goes on to say, it does not require me, the judge, to second guess the administrators. In other words, if the administrators say it's a threat, it's a threat. Have any of you ever said to your parents or another adult in your life, and I just used this example with the 5th or 8th graders, any of you ever said, "Hey, I want to go hang out with my friends"? Your parents or somebody else says no, you say why. What is the most frustrating thing they can say in response? Because I said so. 100%. I have a 2nd grade daughter. Her name is Sophie. She's going to hate me someday that I always use her in my presentations. But when Sophie was in kindergarten, she absolutely loved the movie Moana. Have any of you ever seen Moana? Same here. Thousands of times. Sophie is supposed to go down, brush her teeth, read before she goes to bed. I will never forget when this happened, because it was the first time that I used because I said so. She looks up at me with her big, blue, beautiful eyes, says, Daddy, can I watch Moana? No. But why? I'd never said it before. I'd never thought about it before. But I'm literally seeing my dad flash through my brain. What did I say to Sophie in that moment when she said why? Because I said so. So she starts crying and goes and asks her mom for a second opinion. And my wife, Chrissy, says, no. If Dad said no, the answer is no. Now, she didn't like it. But in my mind, it's like, dude, I'm the dad. Right? You're 6. I'm the one responsible for your safety. If I say go to bed, you're going to bed. I don't owe you an explanation. Right? My house, my rules. The same thing applies to stuff that you do, such as posting online. When you hit post, when you hit send, what you meant becomes irrelevant for the most part. What matters is, how did administrators, teachers, and Facebook moms react? Right? Because if a school says that was a threat, then guess what? It's a threat. Why? Because they said so. Judges are not going to question the characterization of that student's speech or conduct as a threat. Schools have to make reactions. Your teachers have to make reactions in a second. Judges have like 3 years, right? So if they say it's a threat, if they say it's bullying, that's what it's going to be. Now, you don't have to like that, but I think it's fair that you understand. When I get a call from a principal who asks me that kind of question, that's my response. Do you think it's a threat? If so, then it's a threat. Okay. This is a story about a kid that was not getting enough playing time on his junior varsity football team. So he decides that he's going to go talk to his coach about it. He's like, Coach, how come I'm not getting any PT? And the coach says, well, Mr. Bell, because you don't really try very hard in practice and you don't know the plays. He's like, well, that can't be. So he goes and talks to the principal. Says to the principal, this coach has just got it out for me. Doesn't give me any playing time. What's up with that? And the principal's like, well, Mr. Bell, I don't make playing time decisions. That's on your coach. So he feels like he's got nowhere else to go. Other than into his parents' basement in his beat lab, where he writes a rap song about his coach and his principal. Gives himself, overnight, the rap moniker of T-Bizzle. So T-Bizzle makes a rap song about killing his JV football coach and his principal. Better watch your back, I'm going to serve this beep like I serve junkies with some crack. You run up on T-Bizzle, I'm going to hit you with my misspelled Ruger. You messing with the wrong one, going to get a pistol down your mouth, in reference to his JV football coach. Middle fingers up if you want to cap that beep, in reference to his principal. By the time the next morning rolls around, 2,000 independent views on YouTube on his rap song. So somebody brings it in and shows the principal. And the principal's like, well, I'll be darned. He's going to shoot me. They bring in Mr. Bell, and they're like, what do you have to say for yourself? He's like, well, I was just frustrated. I wasn't actually going to hurt anybody. Like, come on, that's crap. I was just writing a rap song. And the principal says, well, we got rules in the school that say that you can't threaten people. I think that's a threat. So they give T-Bizzle a 7-day suspension from school. Well, let me ask you this question. You get suspended from school for 7 days. Is that a punishment or a vacation? Appreciate the 2 or 3 of you that said punishment. That is technically correct. But you think of that as a vacation. They also kicked him off of all of his sports and activities. He couldn't even go attend to watch the games or play production the rest of the year. This happened in football season. That is what really upset him. He didn't care about a 7-day suspension. He cared about getting kicked off the football team. More importantly, the Biz was apparently a good basketball player, but the school said, I don't care. You're off all sports and activities the rest of the year. Yet you think his parents sat him down, they're like, listen, Biz, you really shouldn't be making rap songs about shooting your principal and your coach.
No, they sued him.
No, they sued the school. These lyrics were not actually a threat. Judge, have you ever listened to rap music? Now I want you to picture a judge in your mind. And then think to yourself, do they listen to hardcore rap music? This was free speech. That's what this was. You're going to kill the rap industry if I can't make rap music. To which the judge said, yeah, no, dude, I don't care. Here's what's really interesting. This is the Biz, by the way. With his 2 lawyers that he doesn't have to pay for. Why? Because at the time, T.I., Big Boy, and Killer Mike are funding his lawsuit against the school. The entire rap community is giving this kid money to sue his school because we can't have principals out here stopping aspiring rap artists. Appeals that thing all the way up to one level just short of the United States Supreme Court, who had to answer the question, could a school discipline a student for writing a rap song about wanting to kill the principal and the coach? Even if he had no intent to do it, what do you think the judges said? Sure they can. Come on now. You can access social media a long time after a post is made. 2,000 people viewed it. A bunch of parents were freaked out about a shooting in this school the next day. Of course the school can discipline for that. Unfair? Maybe. How the law works? For sure. This is a young lady, 14 years old, on her softball team at her school, that decided she was going to steal a bottle of vodka from her parents' liquor cabinet, and she was going to take a short video of herself consuming one shot of vodka every hour, and then post those to her Snapchat story. So by the time she takes, like, she's just a tiny little thing, right? Weighs like 120 pounds soaking wet. By the time she takes like her third or fourth shot, her friends are becoming concerned about her. So one of them calls their softball coach and says, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't want to call her parents and get her in trouble. So the softball coach realizes that she's been drinking alcohol, brings her in the next morning and says, I'm sorry, you're off the softball team for 45 days. We had a rule that says you can't drink. And you think her parents sat her down and said, listen, you're 14.
They sued.
You can't be slugging vodka. You think that's what happened?
No, they sued.
No, they sued the school. I am no different than that cheerleader. Somebody, Mr. Principal, tell me how my daughter drinking vodka caused a disruption in school. Pretty good argument, right? It all happened the night before. The school said, no, there's a difference. Just because you put it on social media doesn't mean, right, that it is actually what we're punishing you for. We were not punishing you for posting on social media. We're punishing you for drinking. The fact that you were dumb enough to give us evidence of it is your fault. So just because you post it doesn't mean the underlying conduct couldn't still get you in trouble. The rule was drinking. The rule was not posting about drinking. So she doesn't get to make that argument that it didn't cause a disruption. This is a group of predominantly white students that were on a bus on the way to a football game that decided to go to change.org and start a petition proposing to reinstitute slavery. They thought they were funny. They shared it with some of the other football players in a Snapchat group. And some of the people started making comments like, I love slavery. I hate black people. I would love to have a slave. Now, again, another example where some of you are like, that's terrible, and I agree. Some of you are laughing. Every single teacher in this room not laughing. The truth of the matter is, eventually everybody finds out about this petition. School says to the kids that started the petition, why would you do that? Of course, they say it was just a joke. We don't actually believe any of that. We have several black teammates. We didn't mean it. We just thought it would be funny. The student who created the petition and the other students on the football team all got kicked off the team, such that there were only 7 members of the football team left that were not in the Snapchat group. So they had to forfeit the rest of their games for the season. Do you think their parents sat them down and said, listen, fellas, we really shouldn't be joking about things like this. It's inappropriate.
They sued.
No, they sued the school. You can't kick my kid off the football team for the rest of the year, because that petition never actually was sent to any of their teammates that might have been offended by it. This was a joke among predominantly white students that were just, thinking they were being funny, but were being stupid. You can't kick them off the team for making racist type of comments unless they were making those comments to one of their black teammates. You can't do that. What do you think the judge said? Oh, come on, man. Sure they can. Go look at your handbook. You can't make racially insensitive comments. The school can discipline you for it. 100%. Even the fact that they did not intend it to be shared outside of that group doesn't matter. Even if it never made it outside of that group and it was never said to somebody's face who might be offended, the school has the authority to step in and to discipline students if they have invaded the rights of others to feel comfortable coming to school. Right? We talked about that. All right, how about baseball real quick? This is a kid that is on the Columbus High School baseball team. He convinces his older brother to buy him a 30 rack of Busch Light. He and a bunch of his teammates go out to a cornfield and crush the entire 30 rack on Saturday night. One of the kids that is out there not drinking takes a picture of all of them holding red Solo cups, brings it to the baseball coach. Baseball coach says every kid that was at that party kicked off the team. The one kid was like, "Oh, come on, I wasn't drinking. That's not fair." Baseball coach says, "Look at the rule. The rule says if you are consuming or in the presence of a party that has alcohol, we can discipline you." So, one of the kids that was actually drinking gets told he's kicked off the baseball team, and you think his parents sat him down, they're like, "Listen, bud, you're only 16. You can't be out there slamming Busch Lights on a Saturday night. You're not old enough."
They sued the school.
No, they sued the school. That rule invades my right to be a parent. You can't kick my kid off the baseball team for stuff that happens on a Saturday night. This is the distinction I want you to remember. This judge has it exactly right. This is how the law is written. If you are removed from school, you are protected by the United States and Nebraska Constitution for your right to attend school. There is no such protection to be in sports and activities. In fact, it is a mere expectation, not a constitutionally protected right, to be in sports and activities. It is a privilege. So, if you don't have a right, and the school takes something away that isn't a right, you've suffered no injury. But this is my favorite part. Judge, you should step in and tell this school that that rule about simply being in the presence of alcohol is stupid. If I'm at a party and I make the wise decision not to drink, I shouldn't be disciplined like the idiots on my team that were drinking. And here's what the judge says. Except in a very compelling case, public schools should be run by those officials who are elected by the school board to run it, not by old geezers wearing black robes. Then the judge says this. I know nothing about baseball and beer. I know a lot about baseball and beer. I know nothing about being a school administrator. So if that coach and those administrators and that school board thought that was a sensible rule, who am I to question it? In fact, the judge says, a very long time ago when I was young and brash, as opposed to my present state of fat and old, beer and baseball were my passions, but rules were not. In other words, the judge is saying if I was on your baseball team, I would have been one of the ones drinking Busch Lights. However, it is not up to me to decide if that rule is stupid. That's a rule. You were given a copy of it. You had to follow it. Okay. Everything you do online is tracked. How many of you remember a couple years ago the TikTok challenges? Hopefully none of you did those stupid things. A couple months ago, there was a new TikTok challenge, and it was called the Kia Challenge. Heard about the Kia Challenge? Yeah, so did two enterprising 16-year-olds in Lincoln, who watched a video because some guy from Eastern Europe figured out how you could break into and steal a Kia car without the key fob. And he posts how to do it on TikTok. So these two geniuses ride their bikes down to the Lincoln Children's Zoo and decide to complete the Kia Challenge, with one of them videoing the other the entire time. After they're done, they post their video, tag the guy who posted the initial comment, and use the hashtag Kia Challenge. One of their friends calls them about 30 seconds later and is like, guys, you just posted a video of you committing theft. You might want to take that down. And they're like, oh yeah, that's true. They take it down. Well, unbeknownst to them, once TikTok discovered this was happening, they went through and affirmatively sent to every member of local law enforcement in each community where somebody had either posted a video like this or used the hashtag Kia Challenge. And so they sent police officers all of the contact information and copies of the posted videos of every kid that tried it. So the police roll in with an iPad, show up at the kid's house, knock on the door, and they're like, did you just steal a car from the Lincoln Children's Zoo? No. Hold up the iPad, play the video, kids wearing the same clothes. Everything you do is on there, even if you delete it, right? And in this case, it was Kia sending information to the police. It wasn't somebody that ratted them out, because they tracked all that stuff. You can't make threats. Somebody says something like, better not come to school tomorrow or I'm going to beat you up. That is a crime in Nebraska, 100%. If you are threatening a crime of violence and you're trying to scare people, or if you should know it could scare people, that's a crime. That happens. This is an elementary kid, 11 years old, that packed a plastic toy gun in his backpack and brought it to his elementary school. Whips that gun out at recess time and starts menacing the kindergartners on the playground with this gun. A bunch of these kindergartners just start like peeing their pants and freaking out. And so the principal and all the other teachers see what's happening. Immediately they call the police. The police send a SWAT team to an elementary school, find the kid, find the toy gun, realize it's not a real gun, and they're like, dude, what were you thinking? And the kid's like, why? You can't kill someone with it. It wasn't like a BB gun. It didn't project anything. It was a plastic toy. That kid at 11 years old got charged with a crime because he was using that to menace somebody else when he either knew and was trying to scare them or disregarded the fact that a kindergartner is going to be scared if you wave a gun in their face. I had a kid charged with a crime because he stuck a PlayStation controller in his jacket pocket and was walking down the aisle on the bus pretending like he had a gun. And the bus driver wondered why all these kids were screaming. Police meet the bus when it gets to school. They find a PlayStation controller. Kid's like, I can't kill someone with this unless I'm playing COD. They charge the kid with a crime because nowhere in here does it say if you can do the stupid thing that you're proposing to do, you get in trouble. It just says if you scare people, or you should have known you were going to scare people, that's a crime. This is something I worry about maybe more than anything else we're going to talk about. This is a love story to start. Two high school sweethearts have dated all through high school. They're now 2 years out of high school and in college. They go through a terrible breakup. About a week later, the girl gets a phone call from one of her friends who says, hey, I'm not going to tell you how I know this, but is there a reason that you're selling all of your nude pictures to a pornography website? And she's like, I'm not. And the guy's like, well, I don't want to send you a link or anything, but I'm telling you right now, you are on this website. So the girl finds out about it, calls the police. Police start investigating. Literally 2 nights later, it is 2 a.m. She is sitting in her apartment, gets a knock on the door. Some random stranger she has never met shows up holding a bottle of wine and a dozen roses. She's like, can I help you? The guy's like, oh yeah, it's me, Logan. We met on Tinder. She's like, I have never been on Tinder. Calls the police. The police get a hold of Tinder and realize that her ex-boyfriend has not only created accounts on various adult websites and has made thousands of dollars selling her pictures to these websites, he's also created fake profiles on dating websites to convince random dudes to try to hook up with her, pretending to be her. She gets messages, calls, all hours of the night, because her ex-boyfriend's out there pretending to be her on these various dating apps. She sues him, goes to court. He should have to pay me for the emotional distress he caused me. He should have to pay me for all of the trouble that this has caused in my life. So here's a question. Could this happen to you in Nebraska? Let's assume that you are a significant other with somebody in this room, and the two of you exchange a nude picture, and then you break up. And one of you decides to embarrass the other one by sending that picture to other people. Could the person who had their picture disclosed walk into a courtroom and sue you for money because you disclosed their picture? Could that happen to you? What do you think? 100%. 3 years ago in Nebraska, they passed a law called the Uniform Civil Remedies for the Unauthorized Disclosure of Intimate Images Act, which is about as creative as they get in the unit council. It says, if somebody discloses a picture that contains an intimate image without your consent, you can sue them. Now, how many times do you think the ex-boyfriend calls the ex-girlfriend and says, I'm so mad at you, can I have your permission to share your picture to embarrass you? That doesn't happen. Most likely what happens is it's just shared with a promise not to tell her or him. That's what happens. If somebody who's had a picture shared walks into court, can prove that it was an intimate picture and that it was shared without that person's consent, they don't even have to prove that they actually lost money. All they have to prove is that it was embarrassed them, and the judge can award them $10,000 just for the asking. And the judge can pay the person who shared, or can make the person who shared the picture pay for the lawyer that the person who had the picture shared hired to file the lawsuit. In other words, the person who loses pays for the lawyer. So back to our case. $6.4 million he ends up having to pay her under a nearly identical law. Anytime you see the word uniform in front of a law, what that means is it's the law in many states. They try to make it consistent. The exact same thing could happen in Nebraska, And you'll notice there's nothing in here that says, but only if you're an adult. You share somebody's intimate picture, they can straight up go to court and sue you, which is pretty crazy. But this is what happens when people in the unicamera will see a problem that they don't otherwise know how to fix. They're like, oh, we'll just make the lawyers rich and everybody else unhappy, right? That's what happened in Nebraska. Okay. There are literally law firms that do nothing other than file these lawsuits. I want everybody to sit up straight because we're about to talk about sexting in inappropriate pictures. Come on, sit up straight. Now, this is going to sound crazy, and I understand that, but I can think of no better way to try to drive this point home. So listen to me. Somebody says something to you like, hey, babe, I love you, send me a nude. I want you to say something like this. No, because I don't cook meth. Hey, babe, I love you. It's Valentine's Day. Would you send me a spicy pic? No, because I don't deal cocaine. All right, we'll come back to that. This is part of the reason I'm here, right? This is a research study that they did a couple years ago, and they said, hey, high schoolers across this country, how likely is it that you have sent a nude, asked somebody to send a nude, or been asked to send a nude? Somewhere around at least 1 out of every 4 high school kids admits, yeah, I sent a nude. Somewhere around 50% of boys admit to asking for a nude at some point. 2 out of 3 girls say by the time I graduated high school, I was asked to send a nude. That is a problem. This is the bigger problem. Everybody who took the survey was told this is a crime in every state in this country. You ask somebody to send a nude, that's a crime. You send them a nude, that's a crime. You have a nude in your possession, that's a crime. So knowing that information, would it bother you if somebody asked you to engage in the sending of nudes? 50% of boys, not bothered at all. 43% of boys are bothered a little bit. Some 90% of boys are like, Bobby, I'm here to party. I think part of the reality is that you can talk about not doing it all you want, but appreciating the severity of where it fits within our laws in terms of consequences and how seriously it's taken is something that we don't talk a lot about. This is my favorite phone call I've ever received, and I'm going to have to give you the quick version because we only have 15 minutes left. I want you to think about the kid sitting in this room right now that would take any dare somebody gave him. Just think about that kid. You got somebody in your mind. Who's most likely to take a crazy dare? In my high school, you back there? All right, fair enough. In my high school, the equivalent of you, his name was Tuck. That was his nickname. Okay? Tuck, mind you, runs about 6'4", 275 pounds. A college heavyweight wrestler by the time it's all said and done. Super, super talented athlete. Not exactly the valedictorian. But Tuck was an awesome dude. I get a call from a principal in a school in Nebraska that involved the equivalent of a kid named Tuck. So I'm just going to call this kid Tuck, even though that's not really his name, nor can I tell you which school it's from. But I get a call from a principal who said, Bobby, I had another deal with Tuck today. I'm on a first-name basis with this principal and this student, if that tells you anything. I know exactly who Tuck is. He goes, I said, what's going on, John? He goes, yeah, well, Tuck's up to it again. Last week, somebody dared him to drink a gallon of chocolate milk in under 5 minutes. And there's like silence on the other end. Now, how many of you would ask the question I asked, which is, did he do it? The principal's like, well, he got it all down, but unfortunately, I had to clean up the evidence of the, failed attempt off the sidewalk the next morning. He said, but I'm not calling about that. He said, I've just been brought a phone because there's a pretty crazy thing that happened in our locker room. I'm like, okay, cool. What's going on, John? He goes, do you want me to send you a copy of the video? And I said, no, John, because we don't send inappropriate pictures or videos of minors from locker rooms, do we? He's like, no, that's a good call. I was like, yeah, close. He goes, well, I'll do you one better. Let me tell you about how this started, and then I'll play the video for you off this kid's phone. And I'll hold my phone, or the kid's phone, up to my office phone so you can hear it. So here's how it goes down. They get done with football practice. One of the running backs on the football team is a junior, also in Tuck's class. And for some reason, this kid is the one that can convince Tuck to do nearly anything. So this kid says to Tuck, I bet you can't get in the shower have all of us pour our soap and water all over your body and slide the entire length of the concrete locker room floor. Now, I see some of you with a twinkle in your eye. Tuck got in trouble, okay? Don't do this. This is for example purposes only. You hear me back there? You're not impossible sliding this thing, right? I'm not about to catch you for that. So you know what Tuck says? You want it bad? So Tuck goes, gets in the shower. Everybody walks in and dumps their soap and water all over his head. So he comes out of the shower covered in water and soap and Axe body wash, right? He goes over and he stands by the corner of the locker room. His buddy who has dared him to take the impossible slide does what? Turns at landscape view, because Tuck's a big tall dude. The video starts. So the principal at this point hits play on the kid's phone, holds the phone up to his office phone so I can hear but cannot see this video. He hits play. This junior kid's like, all right, kid, ready, man? Tuck's like, yeah, man. 3, 2, 1, go. You hear these two big squishy splats. Splat, splat, because Tuck has pushed himself off the wall. And then you hear a sound that I will never be able to unhear, which is 275 pounds of dude, covered in water and soap, slapping onto a polished concrete floor. Something between a squish and a splat. I will never, ever in my life be able to unhear that. And he starts sliding. Now, I will admit to you that I LOL'd twice during this phone call. It was entirely unprofessional. I freely admit that. But the first time is one of the kids in the background of the video yells, "Watch out for the drain!" Tuck had forgotten to factor in that what was propelling him for the first part was the decline to the drain in the bathroom, which is going to hurt when you're sliding head first Superman style. So Tuck somehow navigates the drain, and everybody erupts in laughter and applause. And he's going. He's going. The cheers are getting louder and louder and louder. All of a sudden, the principal says to me, and here's where he turns, to smash into the wall on the other side of the locker room. He makes it all the way. The kids in this locker room are going crazy, high-fiving, just going nuts. If one of your friends defied physics for 10 seconds, what are you going to do with that video? You're posting that thing almost immediately, right? He goes, "But Bobby, here's something I need you to understand." He goes, "The kids in my high school, they're pretty smart." And I said, "Yeah, it sounds like it." He goes, "Before they posted the video, they blurred out Tuck. You can't see," and I quote, "any of Tuck's bits and pieces in the video." He says, "It just looks like a blob of humanity floating across the floor." I LOL, it's unprofessional, we move forward. He goes, "So thankfully, Bobby," by the way, I had been in this school about a month earlier giving this presentation. He goes, "So my kids must have heard you, man. They know that they can't post inappropriate stuff online." I said, "Yep, sounds like it. That's good that they blurred out Tuck." He goes, "So do I have to call the police?" I said, "Well, that kind of depends." I never used to talk about this law until this case. But I said, "Go through the video one more time." You hear the, stab, stab, splat. Stops right after the kid yells, "Look out for the drain," because one of the kids named Dylan, about 3 people into the video as the running back is running alongside him capturing it, is wearing nothing but his boxer shorts and a t-shirt. Principal goes, "Well, why does that matter?" I said, "You got to hang up the phone and you got to call the police. He could be in a lot of trouble." He goes, "Tuck?" I said, No, the kid that took the video." Principal calls me back about a half an hour later and said, "Bobby, you're not going to believe this. They just charged this kid in my school with a class 2A felony." I said, "Yeah, I can believe it, in fact. We got a law in Nebraska that says it's unlawful. It breaks the rules for anybody to knowingly and intentionally photograph, film, or otherwise record an image or video of the intimate area of any other person without his or her knowledge and consent, when that intimate area would generally not be visible to the public." You may ask, if they didn't see an intimate area, how do we get to this crime? Which is fair. This is the law in Nebraska that's designed to stop people from sneaking into locker rooms and dressing rooms and taking creepy secret pictures. Intimate area includes the naked or undergarment-clad genitalia of another person. Because Ryan, the kid that took the video, took a video of somebody in their boxer shorts, he gets charged with a class 2A felony in Nebraska because he shared it with more than one person. You know what a class 1 felony is in Nebraska? Murder. This kid gets charged with a class 2A felony. just a step below. How long do you think you can go to prison if you get charged with a Class 2A felony?
20 years.
20 years per violation. So when you share that thing on YouTube and it starts racking up hits, the judge could have sent this kid to prison for the rest of his life. Absolutely. That's crazy, right? There's a reason you have no cell phones out in locker rooms or bathrooms. I start talking about nudes and inappropriate pictures, everybody's mind goes to significant others exchanging those things for romantic purposes. But I will tell you, that is not all the calls that I get. I get calls about people like Tuck, because others decide to record things that they shouldn't be recording, especially where they shouldn't be recording. It's illegal for anybody to share those pictures then without somebody else's consent. That's a separate crime. It's illegal to threaten to share those pictures. So you can't say to somebody, like is a real case that I dealt with, either you do my math homework or I'm going to share your nude. You know what the ex-boyfriend did for about 2 months? He did his ex-girlfriend's math homework. And the teachers eventually figured out that she did really well on the homework and failed the test. She got charged with a crime not because she said, you're either going to hook up with me or I'm going to share the nude, but because she made the kid do his math homework. You can't threaten anybody with one of those pictures. There are crazy cases out there. This is one from around Fremont, Nebraska, where the allegation initially is that the ex-boyfriend has shared nudes with so many people that a random stranger on the internet gets a copy of it. So the police come in, they take the phone from the ex-boyfriend, and they conclude he didn't share the pictures with anyone. Ex-girlfriend says, I never sent pictures to anyone else. Near as they can tell, at some point when this boy's phone was connected to a public Wi-Fi, that may have been the school, at a basketball game, that may have been at Starbucks, they don't know. Somebody in there hacked his phone, got a copy of the ex-girlfriend's nudes, sent her a message that said, either you send me more nude pictures or I'm going to share this with everybody. Or the alternative is you can convince your best friend Lexi to share me nude pictures, and then I won't share your pictures with anybody else. There are creepy people out there. It was so funny. I just asked the 5th or 8th graders, do you have to tell the truth on the internet? These poor little 5th graders were sitting up here, and like half of them are like, because we always tell the truth, right? And I had to look at them and be like, nah. People straight up don't tell the truth on the internet. 100%. I worry about these kind of crazy cases, right? The kid that took the picture and sent it, right? Remember the kid in math class that we started with? He got charged with 2 crimes because he created and distributed an inappropriate picture. It is illegal to be in possession of an inappropriate picture. So, somebody says to you, hey babe, it's Valentine's Day, I love you, send me a nude. Your answer is what? No, I don't. I'm not a coke dealer. I don't cook meth. Now you think I'm being crazy, right? Check this out. That is cocaine. Cocaine is a controlled substance in the state of Nebraska. So is methamphetamine. I do not have some. Nor should you be soliciting the distribution of cocaine. However, I'll let this one slide. This is, at the top, the law that describes possession of a controlled substance. It shall be unlawful for any person to knowingly and intentionally possess a controlled substance. The one right below it is the law that says when you're under 19, you can't possess nudes. It shall be unlawful for any person under 19 years of age to knowingly and intentionally possess nudes. Can't do it. It is literally written the same way. They went to our possession of controlled substantive law and made that the same crime as possession of nudes. As long as you know what you got and you intend to possess it, you are in possession, right, of something for which you could be charged with a crime. Somebody walks up to you and tosses you a sack full of cocaine. I hope for most of you, maybe not you, I hope most of you are going to say something like, I know I can get in trouble for this. I better tell somebody so I don't get in trouble. I don't want it. So it begs the question, how do you handle it when somebody sends you a nude you didn't ask for? Let me ask it another way. How long does it take for you to convert from somebody who received a nude that you didn't want or didn't ask for to turn into somebody who is knowingly and intentionally possessing it? I will tell you in Nebraska, some members of law enforcement have deemed that as short as an hour. An hour is plenty of time for you to get a nude and do something with it that demonstrates you don't want it. My advice to you, somebody sends you a nude that you didn't want, didn't ask for, immediately respond back and say, don't send me anything like that again, I don't want it. Put your phone down, go tell a trusted adult. Now, a bunch of the 8th graders, when I gave that same advice last time, looked at me like, Bobby, I ain't no snitch. Which is fair. I mean, it's weird, right? To think about, I'm going to go tell my parents about something my best friend did, which is going to get my best friend in a bunch of trouble. I understand that. But what I'll tell you is, we've got cases, including some in Nebraska, where kids have received, either via Snapchat group or otherwise, a nude at 11 p.m. The girl who was depicted finds out about it. Her parents call the police, who was standing outside of the school the next morning with a literal list of the number of phones that had received the nude. Who's standing outside of school? The cops. They had a list of the kids' phones that they needed to get. They had received a warrant from a judge to take those phones. So they went through and figured out every kid that had received a copy of that picture. 2 of the kids did not get charged with the crime of possession of child pornography. And they were the 2 that responded with, this is inappropriate, or this is really going to hurt her feelings. We shouldn't be doing that, right? I'm telling you right now, the conversion for when you go from an innocent bystander to somebody who's now in possession might not take that long. So you ought to think now, if it hasn't happened to you already, about what you're going to do to respond to that. Because it can get pretty serious pretty quickly. All right. I think it is illegal to ask somebody to send a nude. Who is my cocaine guy? You right here, right? I will convince your teachers and your principal, I swear to you, that you should get straight A's, that you can play in all the sports and activities you want, and you don't have to attend another day of class in this building for the rest of the year if you can point to the word adult in this slide. You can't see it up there. Yeah, it's almost like I've done this before. This is our law in Nebraska that prohibits child abuse. It says a person, not an adult, commits child abuse if they cause or permit another minor to be placed in a situation to be exploited by encouraging that minor to engage in pornographic photography, films, or depictions. Hey, babe, I love you, send me a nude. Haven't we violated that law? Are you placing another minor in a situation to be depicted in a nude? So I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't ask. Here's a quick example about somebody who did ask and got in trouble for it. This is a story about a girl that got in trouble for asking. Her name is Alicia Harris. She's a 15-year-old girl, minding her own business, meets a 15-year-old boy on Instagram. They chat for a while, become pretty good friends. Eventually, they're kind of romantically involved, right? Like, they talk almost every day. They haven't had the DTR, right, the define the relationship talk yet. But it's pretty clear that they feel strongly about each other. So eventually, Alicia says to the boy, hey, will you send me nude photos? I will send you some back if you do. And what should the kid do? Probably say no. What does he do instead? Heck yeah, you'll send me pics back? Let's go. So they exchange nude pictures. Eventually, Alicia says to the boy, now, let's meet in person, and I find you pretty attractive. I kind of consider you my boyfriend. Let's hook up. So the boy shows up, hooks up with Alicia. Boy, after that point, tells his parents what has happened. Parents call the police. The police arrest Alicia. Take her mugshot. Now, for the record, that is not a 15-year-old girl. That is, in fact, a boy by the name of Raymond Ching that has created multiple fake profiles on various social media websites pretending to be a girl. His MO is that he has taken nude photos that have been shared with him of real girls from his high school, has then used those photos to convince boys that live near him that he is actually the girl depicted in the photo. Hundreds of boys have agreed to exchange nude pictures with him. He has met and hooked up with many of those boys, taken pictures of those encounters, and used those to blackmail those boys on a move-forward basis. So no, you don't have to tell the truth on the internet, right? How many of you have ever gotten a friend request from somebody you don't know? How about a message from somebody you don't know? How many of you have ever gotten a super creepy DM from somebody you don't know? Keep your hand up if you immediately told your parents about it. Yeah, you're not going to tell your parents, most of you. Because if your parents knew the reality of half the crazy stuff that you deal with online, wouldn't you be worried they wouldn't even want you to have a phone? You know way more about technology than they do. But the truth of the matter is, over trial and error, you've kind of figured out how to navigate this. The reason that we catch creepy dudes like this is because a bunch of people eventually reported the account as spam. And then one of these boys told his parents about it, and that's how the whole thing unraveled. So this is the crazy part to me. You had hundreds of boys that fell for this trap that didn't tell a soul. Until this one kid tells his parents, and they figure out all the different fake accounts that Alicia's been running. That's crazy. If it makes you uncomfortable, I know it sounds, kind of cheesy, but you should tell a trusted adult. They want to help you. Your instinct is I'll get in trouble or they'll take the phone away. You should tell one, at minimum, because those little 5th graders were absolutely shocked when I put up a similar picture of a fake account and the real person behind it. They don't know the rules of the game. You do, for the most part. If you would at least report spam accounts so that we can make it so that that becomes the common practice, that would be awesome. Because you've all received creepy DMs or friend requests where you're like, oh, that's fake. But not enough of you are doing the actual added step of reporting that. I would ask that you do that. Last thing, I think we're about out of time. Yeah, we're actually over time. If you get approached on TikTok, by somebody that says to you, and your 27 followers on TikTok, that I think you could become an influencer, I am a Russian talent agent, as long as you send me your bank account information, I'll give you $100 per TikTok post, you should not believe them. Okay? You're not going to be an influencer. I would love to be an influencer. I would quit being a lawyer tomorrow if I could make as much money as influencers do. That's awesome. But somebody trying to convince you that you're going to be an influencer if you just send them your bank account information ain't telling you the truth. In this particular case, it was a 15-year-old high school girl in Lincoln that decided to share her bank account information with this Russian talent agent. And every single day, he would go in and drain her account of money. And then her parents' account would kick in $100, and he would take that. And then her parents' account the next day would put in $100, and he would take that. It wasn't until the parents got a call from the bank that they were missing $3,000 from their account that they finally asked her what was going on. And it turns out she'd been hacked. When she explained the story to them, they're like, that's crazy. One of the things that was really interesting in the article, the parents said, what she said to us is, you never talk to me about people like this on the internet. I think most of you know the rules, right? But the bottom line is, your parents, to some extent, are afraid to talk to you about this stuff. So I don't want to talk to them about some of this stuff. But I would if I were you. Honest to goodness. That way, if something crazy happens, you got an outlet. All right. What do you think? Call it a day, or what should we do? Keep going. Hey, I'm not asking. I know what your answer is. I know what your answer is. Oh, yeah, I'll be done before that. I want to tell you the last story I have here. This is a kid. Any of you ever watch ESPN's College Game Day? Right? They go to a really famous or important football game every week. This is a kid a couple of years ago that got on College Game Day and held up a sign that said, my Busch Light supply needs replenished. Venmo, and then he put his Venmo account on there. Carson King 25. By the end of that day, he had about $1 million in his Venmo account. I literally almost Venmoed this kid money to buy Busch. It was going viral on social media. By the time that next Wednesday rolls around, he's got $1.3 million in his Venmo account. A bunch of people from across the country saw his sign on ESPN's College Game Day and Venmoed the kid money. True story. He attends Iowa State University. Their rival is obviously the University of Iowa, because nobody likes the University of Iowa. They're rivals to everybody, right? Okay, we're going to have to work on that. He decides, if any of you have ever watched a University of Iowa football game that happens in Iowa City, they do this super cool thing. Because right next to their stadium is a children's hospital. And you're talking the children that are there have these terrible afflictions like leukemia, other types of childhood cancers, and other terrible diseases. So at things like half times and quarter breaks, everybody in the stadium, coaches, players, everybody that's watching the game, they turn and they wave at these kids that have their little faces pressed against the windows in this children's hospital. You should, if you've never seen it, it is super cool. Like, you should YouTube that and check that out. It is an awesome thing. So even though he goes to Iowa State University, he decides that he's going to donate all of that money to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. Busch Light puts this guy's face on some of their cans for about a week. He goes on all the late night talk shows. There are newspaper articles across the country written about this kid. I mean, he literally becomes insta-famous for making this donation to Iowa Children's Hospital. And then the Des Moines Register, which is a newspaper in Iowa, in the middle of Iowa, decided to write their own story about him. But before they wrote it, they did a background check. So they published their initial story. And then they write a story about writing the story, where it turns out they discovered as part of his background check, on a since deleted Twitter account, he had made racist jokes when he was a 16-year-old in high school. He had made one joke comparing black mothers to gorillas and another making light of black people killed in the Holocaust. I used to give these presentations and say things like, you got to delete the bad stuff before you start applying for colleges or jobs. Because people like me, that are employers that hire other people, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm totally going to Google you. And something like 75% of employers out there at this point think that if they can't find you on social media, that's a red flag. It used to be that they just don't want to find bad stuff. Now people that you're going to apply to for jobs think, I should find you on social media. You're what's called a digital native. You've been online your whole life. You should have some sort of digital footprint. If you don't, it's probably because you deleted all your accounts. So the question becomes, how did they find out about his deleted Twitter account? And the answer was, the Des Moines Register paid for what's called a digital background check. Now they're still pretty expensive, but there are literally companies out there that for the bargain price of, in some cases, thousands of dollars, have tracked every single thing that's ever been posted on the internet. They take a picture of the internet every 3 to 5 seconds. Anything that's new gets stored, anything that's old gets overwritten and deleted. So in other words, they have basically a time moving forward and a depth. They have a 3D picture of the internet. So the reason they found about his deleted Twitter posts is because they ran this background check on him that was designed to find anything that he'd ever had online, even if he deleted it later. So then they write a story about finding these things where they talk about how hard it was to decide whether to include it in their initial story. In other words, their journalistic integrity caught up with them. So they write a second story about writing the first story and whether they should talk about his racist posts because it was going to destroy his life. So he writes this big, long apology. I obviously have some things to learn in my life. And then the Washington Post does a background check on the guy that wrote the story about doing the background check. And even though this guy's, I can't remember, something like 30-some years old at this point, they discover that the guy who wrote the story about writing the story about writing the story also had made racist posts when he was in high school on a social media account that he deleted. So now we got a guy writing a story about the guy who wrote the story about writing the story. The Des Moines Register says, yeah, that was a bit hypocritical. That journalist is fired. The permanence of the internet, I'm telling you right now, is real. And the fact that all these companies are saving all this stuff, or that it's appeared on the internet at some point in the first place, people are getting paid big bucks to track all that historically. So you got to be careful with that stuff, right? The internet is there forever. All right. Now that is officially all I have. I want to thank you very much for listening to me today. I know some of this stuff is kind of crazy. I appreciate it. Everybody sit tight, because I think you're up against, what, lunch next? But first, I want to say thanks again and have an awesome rest of your school year. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate it very much.